I want to talk in this video about how certainty is the enemy of both hypnosis and change. I'm going to be focusing specifically on formal change work, particularly hypnotic change work, but any kind of effective change work this applies to. But it also kind of applies if you're interested in making any kind of changes to yourself in your life, anything like that. Also, if you hang on till the end of the video, I'm going to be sharing with you a particular tip or trick or bit of business from the legendary Milton H. Erickson. And he was a master of keeping people uncertain in a useful generative way. He would be destabilizing certainties all the time in order to facilitate change. That's a major part of the work that he did. This video is sponsored by the imminent online live training, The Tao of Adaptive Hypnotic Change Work. So if you haven't booked onto this yet and you want to learn hypnotic change work with a strong Ericksonian flavor, live from me, we begin this weekend. There's still time to get on board. There's going to be 20 hours live time, a whole bunch of support materials. If you're interested in that, move fast before we get the train rolling this coming weekend. There'll be a pop-up around here somewhere you can find the links through. Okay, so first things first. Certainty. Why is this the enemy of change? Why is this the enemy of hypnosis? And there are caveats to this. I'm not saying this is absolutely black and white true. This is an idea, a lens to look at things through. So many years ago, I used to open up talks when I was promoting NLP and my NLP trainings. And I'd often start the talk by saying, people are patterned. They walk the way they walk, they talk the way they talk, and they think the way they think. And by and large, if you think about it, we are pretty much patterned, okay? Our sense of humor is our sense of humor. It doesn't radically change all the time. You know, if we, we tend to drive the way we drive, we don't radically change that unless something in the context changes. Maybe we feel we need to get somewhere quicker. We laugh at the same kinds of jokes. We get on with the same kinds of people. We tend to react the same way when people accuse us of something or whatever, or we feel offended or whatever. We're pretty patterned, okay? Now, I've also talked about this in other places as we live through a trance repertoire. We have a certain set of trances through which we show up and engage in the world. If I want to play guitar at my best, I need to show up in my guitar playing trance. If I want to drive at my best, my driving trance, my YouTube trance, right? I have a kind of trance I go into to do these videos, which suits the work that I'm doing. So we have these repertoires. Now, each one of these trances or these patterns or whatever, they are held in place, if you like, by a certain set of certainties, a certain set of rules that operate outside of consciousness about what is or isn't so, how things are, how things aren't, that dictate what comes out of us, what emerges from us. I'll give you a really simple example of this. I'm sitting in a chair right now, and I sat in this chair, and I didn't think twice about sitting in this chair. Now, I have a bunch of certainties about this chair that I don't need to access consciously. They just sit there and they inform my behavior. So one certainty that I have is that the chair is going to bear my weight, right? Now, if somebody said, but is it possible it wouldn't? I'd say yes, hypothetically, but I wasn't thinking about that. I just was operating by the unconscious certainty that the chair would bear my weight. And so I sat in the chair without thinking twice. Had I not had the certainty that the chair would bear my weight, I would have very cautiously sat in the chair. I might have pushed it. I would have had a very different behavior, a very different automated response set in meeting the sitting in this chair, okay? I'll give you another example of this. Many years ago, I had an unconscious certainty that ran a particular kind of social trance for me, that people would be inherently mistrusting of me and anybody else. I just thought this is the way it was. I thought that people were mistrusting of other people until they'd sort of proven themselves or explained themselves. I didn't even know I held that certainty because our real certainties operate outside of consciousness, right? We're not at all consciously certain about what our deep certainties are, but we operate by them. And it used to get in my way socially because I would be like wanting to explain myself too quickly or whatever, or build rapport too quickly. I had a neediness to build rapport quickly, that kind of thing. And that didn't help with social interactions. And I learned, I've told a particular story around this, so I'm not going to tell the story, but I learned through my work as a professional magician to slow down introducing myself, to slow down explaining myself, to slow down the exposition of who I was and how I was. And I actually found that really, if you just approach people with the right kind of energy, they're usually pretty open, most people. Not everybody, because people meet the world the way they meet the world. It's not down to me to demand otherwise. But once that old certainty fell away, I was free to change. Okay, so long as you are grasped by or gripped by, or you're holding on to yourself a certain set of certainties, you cannot have a different behavior emerge out of the same set of certainties. It just doesn't happen. So in a sense, all change work is about doing something different, right? Now that doing might be like actually out in the world, different behaviors, or it might be doing something different inside of your mind. Bill O'Hanlon's put this in a really nice way. He said that you want to affect a change in viewing or a change in doing. Now, if you look at the work of Milton H. Erickson, who I mentioned here, he would often task people. He would get people to do things differently in the world. But what he wouldn't do is give them any certainty about why he was doing that. He would just trap them through kind of psychological binds into doing these crazy things. And he would deliberately not explain himself. Okay? He would just get people to do things. He would trap them, in a sense, into doing these things, knowing that when they did them, without any certainty or any sense even about what it was supposed to change or how it was supposed to work, he would often imply there was a mechanism, right? They would do the things, and the change in doing would create counter-examples or just shift or loosen off the old certainties that sit at the level of viewing, right? So viewing and doing, you change the doing, you often change the viewing. But if somebody makes sense of a different doing and they think they understand it, they've got a new certainty, they go, oh, that's not going to work for me because X, Y, and Z, or I tried that before and that didn't work because of whatever. So this is why Milton Erickson, if you look at a characteristic of his work, he's keeping people constantly uncertain. Right? He keeps people in anticipation of things, but it's unspecified as to what, and he stops people settling on certainty. Okay, so when I'm teaching hypnosis, a lot of the time I'm wanting to get people to embody certain principles. One of the principles that I want people to embody is to never try to convince anybody of anything. And this is a thing that a lot of people that do hypnosis, a lot of people that do change work fall for all the time. They think they need to convince somebody that hypnosis is real. They think they need to convince somebody that change is possible. But as soon as they start trying to convince, they become too explicit, they become too pushy, and it triggers the person's existing certainties, what they already believe to be true or not true about what's possible about hypnosis and change. Right? You do not want people in their certainties about hypnosis, right? Unless the outlier case here is if somebody by amazing fluke happens to have a set of certainties about hypnosis that really serve you doing great hypnotic work. But most of the time, people's certainties about hypnosis don't help you do hypnosis. Most of the time, people's certainties about what's possible for them, their certainties about what's possible for humans, what's possible for change, doesn't help them. So certainties create a tight grip on what is. I often say to people, if you're going to work with me, if we're going to work together and do some powerful work, it may well be challenging for you and you may well not like a lot of it. And the reason for that is because you're going to have to let go of some cherished truths, whether you realize it consciously or unconsciously. Okay, now this starts to bring me on to Erickson's trick, if you like, that he would use to keep people uncertain. I'm just going to say this, right? You might go, well, uncertainty is bad. A lot of people think the opposite of certainty is uncertainty. That is an opposite, right? Semantically speaking. But another opposite of certainty is possibility. Can you see how, if you're doing change with people, instead of trying to move people from one set of certainties to another, which usually ends up in arguing about what is or isn't so, if you just aim to move somebody out of certainty and into possibility, right? This is the releasing, the letting go that I talked about. Was it in this take of the video or was it in a previous take? I don't know. I'll mention it again. That solve coagula, right? Hypnosis, hypnotic change work is about releasing on the one hand and creating on the other hand. That's all you're ever doing is releasing, letting go of old certainties, creating new associations, new connections, new possibilities. That's all the work is. But you want to get somebody to buy in. You don't want their critical faculty working against you. Where does the critical faculty ground itself? In existing certainties. That is the bedrock, the foundation of the critical faculty are existing certainties. So we want to disrupt certainties all the time. Now, here's the thing. People are habitual reflexive sense makers. So if you suggest a new idea to somebody, a person will immediately make sense of that, and they will come to a rapid set of certainties about that, what's sometimes called premature cognitive closure. They'll think they know what you're saying, they'll think they know why you're saying it, or they'll think it's complete nonsense and just throw it out. But they'll come to a conclusion rapidly. They'll come to a certainty rapidly. As soon as somebody comes to a certainty, what gets shut down is possibility. Right? So whatever I say to a client, if you do change work, whatever you say to a client, if somebody comes to a certainty about what you're saying, it might not be a particularly obstructive certainty, but it will stop further open-minded exploration in the realm of possibility, because they will have come to a premature cognitive closure. So you want to stop people doing this. And one of the ways that Erickson would stop people doing this is by creating a dissociation, a frame of dissociation between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind, right? So he might say to somebody, I'm going to tell you something now, and I want you to make whatever conscious sense you make of it, while recognizing that your inner mind, your deeper mind, can connect to something even deeper, right? Or he may say something like, you might think you know what I'm saying consciously, and that's okay, because your inner mind knows something else, right? Something like that. I'm using the way I do it, right? That's not quoting Erickson exactly. That's Erickson through me. So I'll often talk about your inner mind or your deeper mind rather than your unconscious mind. But the principle is the same thing. Now, what you're doing when you do this, and you're doing suggestion work with a client, if I make a suggestion, I want their creative unconscious mind, the client's creative unconscious mind, to create with that suggestion. I don't want their conscious mind to come to a certainty about what I'm saying and then argue with it. Now, if I'm going to say something that seems like it kind of makes sense, what I want to say to the person is, doesn't it really seem like this makes sense? And I wonder what is everything else that goes beyond this that you can create with deeply. I want to stop people coming to premature cognitive closure. I want people, whenever they think they know what I'm saying, to be open to the possibility, or at least curious about what else is going on at a deeper level, what else might be happening beyond what they think is happening, right? So what that's about, what I'm doing when I do that, and I believe this is why Erickson used to work this way, it's stopping people settling in a new certainty. You want to disrupt certainty and keep people uncertain or in the realm of possibility, and continue to feed into that realm of possibility suggestions for their unconscious mind to create with. This is a very powerful and effective way to do hypnotic change work. Certainties tend to get in the way, okay? So if you're a hypnotist and you're in the habit of trying to convince people that they are hypnotized, you'll probably find the more you try and convince people that they are hypnotized, the more often you get people going, oh yeah, I don't think I was hypnotized though. When you let go of trying to convince people they were hypnotized and keep them instead in a state of uncertainty about whether they're hypnotized or not, then they're hypnotized, right? So it's a much more elegant way of working. The same with change. If you're trying to convince somebody, no, don't look at it like this, look at it like that, or if you could see things the way I see things, then you wouldn't have this problem, right? I just need to move you to this new way of seeing. And if I hold an excess importance on that and I'm too stuck on it, I'm going to insist too much, and I'm going to skip out opening somebody to the realm of possibility via uncertainty, and I'm going to push a new certainty on. And when you push on people, people push back with their old certainties. You try and push a new certainty straight in, the old certainty pushes back. All right, so hopefully that's a useful concept. Hopefully I've said enough there that you will be able to make some useful sense of it, at least at a conscious level, right? You know, and I'm not going to suggest to you that there's any more depth to this that could really serve you if you were curious to look further. But, you know, it's down to you what you do with it at the end of the day. But I am going to recommend that if you like the video, if you got some value from it, please do give it a thumbs up. Please do subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And if you have any questions, you can make use of the comments section. I probably put a little drop-in piece in here saying there's still an opportunity this week. It's coming this weekend, the first weekend of the live online training, the Tao of Adaptive Hypnotic Change Work. This is a very Ericksonian flavored approach to hypnotic change work, but it's also a very Taoist approach as well. I've talked in the program about how the two patron saints of this program are Milton H. Erickson and Trances, the Taoist sage Trances. So that's still coming up. If you're interested in that, if you're interested in evoking change, creating change, facilitating change, hypnotically, whether that's explicitly using hypnosis or more covertly, then this training will have a wealth of wonderful material for you. It's coming up this weekend if you're interested. And I don't think there's anything else I need to say right here. Appreciate you staying to the end of the video, and I look forward to when we next connect.